Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to my video. I am on some mountain today. It is going to be explained further on. I think I might be the only black person in a 50-mile square radius. But we're out on the mountains today. I'm up here with Ranger Jack. He's showing me his neck of the woods, so to speak, and let's go on an adventure. We are about to start. I'm going to frame my man Ranger Jack into this. Ranger Jack, what is up, my man?
Hey King, how you doing today? Thanks for coming out. We are in a state forest, which is designated as such because of the way it's managed.
Okay.
State forests, they're defined as taking care of timber harvest, which are managed and cultivated, and then also providing for aquifer protection, which means the watershed, your creeks, your rivers and such. Make sure that there's healthy ecosystems around those water bodies so that they don't get a lot of sediments building up in them. We are standing right here at a typical, what you would call a Forest Service gate.
All right.
And here's a forest road that goes in a couple of miles. I think this is Green Ridge Road, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to get on a trail that parallels this forest road, and we're going to walk along the top of Green Ridge Mountain. And King will probably show you some different attributes that are part of this ridge. And it's a beautiful winter day. It's not too cold, it's not too warm, so we're going to have a good time, and King's going to learn a few things.
Will I have to worry about wildlife attacking me?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, because I'm telling you right now, man, I got the blicky of somebody, if some bear want to pop off, man. I got the jammy ready for him.
I got us covered there if need be. I'm packing today.
All right.
Ranger Jack still packs.
All right.
Let's hit it. Yeah, by the way, I don't know if that's dog print, but every so often, if you see a disturbance, check down into the soil because you may find a unique animal track.
All right.
It's a shame there ain't snow down there because I'm going to tell you, you can find all kinds of critters there.
Hey, man, like I said, I'm looking out for bears. Bears.
Yeah.
Are there coyotes up in this region at all?
We do have coyotes. We do have mountain lions, but I have yet to see a mountain lion in Pennsylvania, but I know we haven't because other people I know have seen them.
All right. So what's this area right here, man?
This is called
like
Green Ridge Trail.
All right.
Green Ridge Trail probably at one time was an old logging road or an old fire road for fighting wildfires. And what they would do is they would come in with bulldozers and try to lay out paths, carefully lay paths so firefighters could work in and set fire line and then work the fire and kind of cancel the fire out. But a fire line can be a forest road, it can be a trail, it can just be a hand dug line where it just gets scraped down to earth. Prescribed burns are usually managed by the different agencies, whether it's Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, Park Service.
Hey, my bad. If I hear sounds, I'm turning.
Yeah. That's just the township road crew back behind us. They're just, I think they're doing some mowing. But it looks like they've laid some shale on this one. So this has had some remediation done to it recently. And it's actually more like a hard pack road than anything. But at one time, this was all just dirt and grass. And this was just last winter when I was up here.
Did you ever have any crazy fire stories when you were working as a ranger?
Yeah, I did. I'll tell you one real quick. So back in 1997, was my first couple of weeks working at Cape Hatteras at the federal location. And there was a lightning strike. And I remember seeing lightning strikes. It was the middle of the day. It was really hot. And the next thing you know, you could start to see smoke coming out of an old maritime wooded area that we had near a lighthouse station. And it wasn't too long after that the incident command system got engaged. And all of the rangers had to mobilize. They had to make sure they had the red card for the pack test, which is something you have to qualify for to be able to go out on a fire line. and I had mine, so I got sent out. My friend did not, so he ended up just staying on patrol work. And we immediately got into the Nomex gear, which is the green pants and the yellow shirts. They're supposed to be fire retardant. You get the yellow hard hat, and you get your gear depending on whether it's hand tools for digging fire line or whether it's drip torches for setting back fires, which cancel out fires. So that's what we did for 2 or 3 days, and then we finally got that fire to burn itself out. And it was really hot and it was really intense.
When that happens, do you get like extra hazard pay for something that happens like that?
You do have a hazard pay. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 16%, but don't quote me because it's been a while. And different agencies at different levels may have different versions of that pay. But usually if you fight a federal fire, you get paid under the federal pay system. And the way I recollect it was they called it hazard pay.
Okay.
So that's what the common terminology was. And of course it gets taxed at a higher rate as well. So,
of course it does.
Yeah.
Government don't want their part of that.
Nope.
All right, Jack, man, I'm curious. Why even come out here in the woods in the first place? Like, what is it that getting out in nature, like, what does that do for you?
Well, it does a couple of things, King. For one, it's cardio. So
there's
a certain way of climbing the mountain that I can do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a certain way I climb the mountain when I'm just coming out strictly for cardio, and that'll be I'll look for a trail that pretty much is mostly an ascent, a climb for a sustained period of time.
Okay.
You know, say like around here, these ridges, your average climb time is going to be 20 to 35 minutes. And I'll do one of these climbs, whether it's on a forest road, a logging road like this, or a straight up trail. I'll climb up that thing, get the heart rate up, get a good sweat going, whether it's summer or winter. And when I get to the top, I'll stop and I'll count my beats for a minute, and I'll watch my timer on my watch.
You don't wear the things like the Fitbit, like
what
I have on?
Do it with an old school, digital watch. I'll count my beats for a minute, and let's say I get 100, usually averages anywhere from 120, 130 beats. I know I'm doing something right. I got a sweat, I'm really warm. And then what I'll do is I always try to make an overlook part of the reward of the finish of the assignment, which is doing the cardio.
Okay.
The other reason is just to clear your mind. This is like therapy for the mind and the soul. And there's a difference between the mind and the soul. The soul is where your spirituality comes from, and it's kind of intangible. But the mind is where you're processing everything from day to day. So it's a good release to tap back into what we came from. And a lot of people forget. You take away the house, you take away the work office, and you take away the stores. We came from some variation of this kind of ecology in our ancestry. And I'm just tapping back into it. I'm plugging back into it for a little while.
Okay.
And reminding myself of what we came from, and that we were part of a bigger ecosystem at one time before we got so big on our britches and took ourselves out of it and thought we were better than everything else. So that's me just humbling myself. And the third thing is I like to do my prayer out here.
Ah, okay.
This is mi iglesia, my church. This mountain, any mountain I go to, it could be in West Virginia, it could be in the Sierras of California, it could be in the Whites of New Hampshire, or here in the Alleghenies and the Blue Ridge of Pennsylvania. But that's my church. I go out and I pray for people that need, that need healing, that need peace, especially now with everything that's been going on in our society. So for me, it's my church. So multiple reasons. And it just makes me feel more alive.
All right. Good deal. Good deal.
Yes, sir.
I tell you what, it's nice, like, because I don't hear, you don't hear the cars.
Nope.
You don't hear that traffic. You don't hear people bitching and complaining about stupid stuff. Right now I just hear the wind.
Yeah.
Well,
and if you look through here, There is a little bit of a glacial remnant. I don't know if you can see it through the trees, but we'll take a walk back. It's about 25, 30 yards in.
Okay.
There's a bit of an upheaval of these rocks on the spine of this ridge, and it'll show you a little bit of the old glacial influences from the last ice age.
Okay.
Check out the differential from this side to this side, and then you can look up and down the spine of this Lockout Property. This is all glacially influenced upheaval and slide. So when you see how this is, good man, good work on that.
Whew. Yeah, especially trying to do it while holding the camera. Wow.
You're getting good, bro.
I ain't gonna be able to do that back down though.
You see the view?
All right, so you were just talking about getting tracked. Like, tell me a little bit more. Like, how are you keeping up with your situational awareness while you're out stalking these ridges?
So when I'm out here climbing around or stalking the ridge, because that's what I'm doing. I'm actually moving at a much quicker pace.
Yeah, you're walking at a slower pace for me.
Yeah, when I'm walking out here solo, I'm usually moving at a really decent clip. And I was explaining to King that from my ranger days, from my growing up days of always having to look over your shoulder, when I come out in the woods, I get the peace of mind to the highest degree, but that comes with a tag, price tag. You gotta be aware of your surroundings, because at any time, you know, you could be getting tracked by some coyote, some mountain lion, you know, a black bear. Black bears have been known to stalk hunters who were hunting for them. And the bear
hunter becomes the
around.
hunted.
Yeah, the bear turned it around on him. Bears are smart. These animals are smart. You know, deer are smart. It's just they're in their world. They're not used to our world. So that's why people always are under the misimpression that animals are less than intelligent, but they're far from it, because they're tuned in. And when you come out here, you got to bring on those primordial senses that we used to have 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, and tune into this and be a part of it. Not wearing headphones, not out here singing out loud, but showing some respect for the mountain or the woods or wherever, the desert, wherever you're at, and tuning into it. Because if you're not tuning in, you could be getting tracked by 4 or 5 coyote. 2 of them are flanking, 2 are following, 1 circling around in front of you. You know what I mean? You got to be looking and paying attention and smelling the air and listening and trusting your intuition. Because sometimes if you get the hair on the back of your neck or on your arm stands up and things go dead silent in the woods, there's probably a reason for that. Because there's a predator in the area. So you have to learn how to tune in. And that's the only caution I would throw out to people that want to come out and recreate or leisure in wilderness areas like this, or even more developed parks that are near urban areas. You want to be tuned into your environment, because a lot of people aren't, and they get away with it, but there's always that one time. So I'm thus tuned in, and King was asking me about that. And I just figured it'd be a good PSA to share that with everybody.
Okay, all right. I'm telling you right now, let me see something that's looking like it's stalking me up in these woods.
And he's gonna take off running until he runs out of gas.
Hey, I will be like Jesse Owens in this joint.
Yeah, until that bear catches up with you and tackles you.
Hey man, how fast are bears?
Bears can probably go, depending on whether it's male, female, how big it is, how hungry it is. They could go upwards of 25 miles an hour.
Yo.
Easily.
And I didn't know this. They can actually climb trees.
Yes, they can climb a tree out here that doesn't have any low-lying branches quicker than you could ever get up a sapling that had branches.
Hey, that little red thing right there, man. What's that?
That is a trail marker. And
Okay.
that's set up for the cross-country skiing and the snowmobiling recreation. In fact, there's a couple more right down here at the intersection, and the one has an arrow going north, and one has an arrow going south, and then that tells you you're hitting a juncture.
Okay.
There's different kinds of trail markings, but in this particular area, this forest on this mountain, those are the particular ones they decided to use for snowmobile and cross-country skiing. But as you can see, we're in the heart of the winter and nothing. A little disappointing.
Who is that handsome fella right there?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sir. That gentleman there is myself. This was taken in 2000 at a federal park that I worked at, and I was doing one of my collateral duties, which was water quality checks.
Okay.
And you check for several things, including the pH and the particulates, and I can't remember, there was about 3 or 4 properties we checked for. And this is something we would do on a weekly basis. So depending on where you worked, site-wise, specific, say like a battlefield or a seashore or a forest, and depending on what agency you work for, whether it was a refuge or a park or a forest, your duties could be a little different, but still under the color of the ranger series.
Gotcha.
Now, this job was with a Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, sign me up for that. Man, I see
agency.
beach and water, man.
Yeah.
What? Yes.
And
yes.
On this one, I'm doing patrol work. Now, of course, I was getting a little picture with the Bronco in the shoreline, but this was me on patrol. So this is a lot of what you do when you're a ranger, is random solitary patrol, whether it's on foot, horseback, bicycle, ATV, or in this case in the Bronc.
Still had that Bronco?
I got one of my own.
Nice.
Yeah, man, I love them trucks. They're like tanks.
Good deal.
So.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of pitfall are these widow makers, like these cherry trees and such, and these oaks, these young oaks. Looks like something's actually eating at these things, because I can see they got into the bark. So some kind of an invasive insect from Asia. But 1, 2, 3 right there are all widow makers now, unfortunately. And at some point they're gonna go.
He said invasive insects from Asia.
Yeah.
Are these like COVID insects, Jack?
Well, they might as well be, because they snuck in probably in a cargo crate on a ship, and what they do is, I'm not sure the name of this particular one, but it looks like they're burrowing in and depositing their larvae into these little holes, and the larvae then take and mess with the cambrial layer, if I'm using the right term. I'm trying to remember my dendrology of this tree, and if you take away that circumference of that tree's ability to have protection with the bark and move that phylum up and down the tree, kind of like blood in our veins, if you take that tree's ability away, you essentially have killed it.
Could you come out here on your own with just a knife and a rifle, let's say limited ammo, and survive for a week? 6 days. Give me 7 days, 6 nights.
I'd have to practice, because I haven't worked on that recently, but I could definitely make it to the end of the 6 days. Would I be prevailing or surviving? Probably on the survival end of the spectrum more than prevailing.
All right.
But with a loaded gun and a knife, that increases the odds. Then I just got to make fire and make shelter.
Have you seen that show, Naked and Afraid? Or not Naked and Afraid, but it's like Survival Naked, where they put a man and a woman out, and they're able to pick,
Yes,
certain tools or whatever that they have. Could you do something like that, man? Like, let's say survive and you get 100,000. Could you? Would it be worth it for you?
I think a financial incentive would enable that, but I think the humility you have to go through to have that documented and put on television, I don't know. It would be a real fine line between, do I want the money or do I want to go through all the humility to get to that money?
I'd be afraid of a tick like biting my junk, man, while I'm sleeping.
Not so bad out here as, say, a jungle.
Got you.
Definitely spring or summer out here, you got to definitely scrape your ground before you lay. because that's how they'll get you.
Scrape your ground.
Oh yeah, scrape your
What does that
ground.
mean?
So for example, if I take I'll use this stick up here for a bad quick example, and you would take this stick, or some kind of a stick that has multiple branches on it, and you slowly start working the loam, which is all the material such as the leaves and the twigs, and you work them back, and you got to dig and dig, and you start to clear that. Well, when you start to clear that, for sake of time, you see how you can already see underneath of all that loam?
Gotcha.
You want to clear that down to a base level, so that way there's less hiding areas for those kind of parasites to sit in. And there's still no guarantees.
Okay.
But would I do a show like that? Probably not. But would I try to come out here and play around with some survival techniques with some recreational camping? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I think I could do that.
Good deal. Walking on the ridge. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Hey, if a bear come see me in the woods, I'm gonna look at the bear and say, try somebody else, bear, because this ain't what you want. Man, nobody told me I had crust in my eyes while I'm stalking the ridge, being a ridge stalker out here with nature. Hey, if a bear roll up, I'm gonna look at that bear and be like, what you wanna do, bear? Come on with it.
All right. So this guy here, this is a very common grouping of rock that kind of, I won't say grows, but exists here in these mountains.
Okay.
Pennsylvania, mostly in the Appalachians, all up and down from Canada the whole way down to Alabama. You're going to find outcroppings of this guy here. This is quartz, or quartzite. I'm not sure what the proper term is. I think one's short for the other. These rocks have a lot of properties to them that are not only visually stunning because of the shine, and this one's not even cleaned up. I've seen them whiter than this, but they also have pseudomagnetic, electromagnetic properties to them. And another example of that is granite, which is very common up in New Hampshire and Vermont, and maybe a little bit of Maine. And what I mean by that is that if there's enough electrical charge in the air from a storm, it almost uses these things as receptors of sorts, or transistors of sorts, if I can use those kind of terminologies loosely. But there's special capabilities in these rocks that science geologists are beginning to tap and understand. Maybe possible energy sources, but it's something you really got to do a lot of reading about, because there's not a lot of common information about it. But if you talk to a really good geologist that deals with the natural elements out here on a regular basis, they could probably tell you a lot more about these guys. But these are really special little things here, and my kid loves them.
All right. So, Jack.
Yes, sir.
The inquiring minds want to know, my man.
And let us sate them.
Sasquatch, Bigfoot, big furry things out here in these woods. Have you seen any?
No, I had not.
Have you seen evidence?
The tree that we just saw the break in, the maple back here a little ways, I don't know if you can pan in, but this one tree has a break in it that's about 12 foot up.
Okay.
And that tree was alive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's what did it, but there's a reason why that thing broke halfway up and not down from the bottom, especially with it being a live tree. And it broke from a north-facing direction, falling south.
Okay.
Usually if there's a deadfall, it's usually a northwest or a west wind that brings the deadfalls down and cleans the woods up.
Gotcha.
They're the cleaners of the woods, or the west winds and the northwest winds. As far as the Sasquatch phenomenon. I believe there's enough cumulative evidence. Patterson-Gimlin footage is the best example of it.
Across the creek. I got off the horse and took my rifle out of the scabbard in case I had to make a shot.
But the Paul Freeman footage, he was a forester in the Forest Service. He's passed away since, but his footage has been deemed highly credible. And also the tracks. And you have to think about weight. These things have a lot of weight, a lot of mass in their bodies. And the tracks that are left sometimes that human couldn't do, even with templated feet on. If they were walking with Bigfoot feet on and tried to duplicate Bigfoot tracks, would not be able to leave the same impressions in the ground as deep as some of these Sasquatch impressions.
Okay.
The thing about the Sasquatch there's a lot of controversial evidence that seems to connect them up to us in a strange way that a lot of science isn't ready for, because it's going to challenge a lot of religion and a lot of the accepted Bigfoot science and just general science that's out there right now in the world.
Now, is this something that you'd be interested in doing a podcast on and talking about?
Maybe down the line.
All right.
But it's a thing that it's not a matter of whether you want to believe it exists or not. It's not like God or Santa Claus or the Great Pumpkin. This thing is out there. People have seen it. People that aren't looking for notoriety. And these things seem to have capabilities of cloaking and disappearing that we can't even begin to understand right now. But the people that have studied it, that are behind and under the radar, know these things are happening, and I've been tapping into a lot of that information. I didn't run into any of these creatures. I hope I never do. But I don't need to see them to believe they're there, just like I don't need to see God to know he exists.
Okay.
Just look at all this beautiful creation out here.
What do you think about people that do things like that right there, Jack?
That is a big pet peeve of mine. I used to go around when I'd do foot patrols, and depending on how bad the littering was, I would take a big, like 50-gallon trash bag with me. And it wasn't uncommon for me to go around as part of my law enforcement patrol or general patrol, just to pick up trash. It's hard to do that when I'm out like this because I don't have a pack, I don't have a trash bag, I don't really want to touch this stuff without gloves on, with all the weird diseases out there nowadays. My thoughts are, though, three of the biggest things I have a problem with people that come into forests, refuge parks, or private conservation areas are littering, poaching, and harassing wildlife. That's what makes a ranger different than a sheriff's deputy or a state patrolman, is we're out here as the caretakers of the critters and the ecology that they have to live in. And when you're leaving this stuff out there, all that's saying is I have no respect for this place, which then puts me in a position of saying, well, I'm going to come after you if I find you.
Gotcha.
And it's the same thing for poaching. I had no mercy on poachers or illegal trappers. So if you're one of those people, square your shit up. So, but those are my thoughts on that, and that's as real as it can get.
All right. All right, so I survived the woods, all right? I survived. Didn't see any bears, but you know what? The bears were, like I said, hold on. So I survived the woods, all right? I got out here, I did my thing, you know what I'm saying? The bears didn't want to run up on me because they know if they run up, they get done up. But it was pretty dope. It was pretty dope to get out here in nature, you know, see what nature has to offer, and, you know, go out there with somebody that knows what they're talking about too. Can you go out solo? Yes, I would stick to the named trails, make sure that you've got water and things like that, and don't go venturing off too crazy if it's like crazy weather or anything like that. But get out, see the world,